Okay, I'm going to talk about TroTec Ruby. This is the program that we're going to prepare our laser cutting files with. There's a few things we need to know first. So there's a design tab, and when you're in the design tab, you'll see designs up here and everyone else's designs. So you've only got access to your own, and I think you can use the others, but you can't save over them. Then there's jobs. Jobs is down here. That's where we prepare the jobs. So you can have several designs getting pulled over into the job. What we've already prepared, and I'll go through in this video in Fusion 360, is how to make the 3D objects for cutting. So that's the red lines that were already in this job. And then I've just pulled in a JPEG image. I've just got this off the internet, saved it as a JPEG, and I can place this anywhere on the design for engraving. So anything that's black is going to be engraving. It's pretty capable of doing small designs. I'm not sure that's very small. You can see the scale here. That's equivalent to about 5 millimeters in height. So that's probably going to be a little bit too detailed. We could give it a go though. So this design here is a Rubik's Cube. It's not my design, but I've modeled it in Fusion based on another student's project. Let's go over to Fusion and have a look. So this is the design that we're cutting, and it's been prepared for several layers. So it's like a layered up design, and you can see that each of these layers come apart. I've designed them to be 9mm layers. We've got some 3mm spacers here. We've got a 3mm spacer on this one as well. And we've got some 3mm spacers in between. So essentially these are 9mm material, and 9 plus 9 is 18, and I've spaced it accordingly with 3mm gaps. Now the first thing we need to think about is the arrange feature in here. So if I right click or click on here, under the modified drop down and arrange, we can arrange this. I'll always start with capture position, and then we're going to select all our components. The easiest way to do that is to click the top and then click the bottom, holding shift down, and you should see all your components in the list of components. Now we're going to go to envelope, and in envelope we can tell it which plane we want it to lay these flat on. So I'm going to do this plane here. Now I'm going to tell it the length of the material. So the length of the material that we're going to put in the laser cutter is maxed out at 800, and the width of the material that we're going to use to cut is 140. Placement, let's place it 1mm apart. Frame width 1mm, and object spacing 1mm. Let's click OK to that. Now it's not perfect, so let's have a look what it's done. So it's got a millimeter space in between each of the designs. You can see it's nested inside, which is a quite neat way of using the material, but it hasn't done these designs very well. So I'm going to just pull them across to the side like that, and like that, and we'll do a save. So we've got everything on one plane, and it's ready to produce a DXF file. We're going to come up here and go new drawing from design. At this point, what I'd like to do is choose the largest possible size for the sheet. So the AO is best for this, and we click OK. We'd like to avoid scaling in the Ruby software. It's better if we get the correct scale in here. We need to pick the right view so we can see our work. So the right view, we can see our work. It needs to be a 1:1 scale, which it is already. If it's a 1:2, you'll see it's quite small. 1:1 is full size. Click OK, and then zoom in. Just check your work is all there. Next, we're going to delete by clicking and deleting the border and the title block, and then come up to export, save DXF. Export DXF. We can choose to do save this in our on our computer, and I am going to call this Rubik Cube Test 2. Should name my files a bit better. So we've got that ready to go, and next I'll show you how to import it into Ruby. So back into Ruby, I'm in the Design tab. You can see Design up here, and what I'm going to do is open my Explorer window and drag and drop that into that section. So I've double clicked the design so it's open. We're still in the Design tab. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to size this to fit on the page a little bit better. We don't want to scale this because it's at the 1-to-1 scale or full size scale that we've already drawn in Fusion. I've just rotated by selecting the whole lot and rotate using the little handle, and then using this button here, Fit to Design, we click 1mm. It will put a 1mm border the whole way around our design. So it's possible to move some of these vector lines in Ruby. If I click this one and move it into the center, it's actually a really nice, useful way of using the space. Notice how it snaps to the lines too. That's also really handy because there's a feature where it won't cut double up lines. I'll show you where to turn that on later. The only catch with this is if we move something in the wrong spot, it's going to cut and change our design that we made in Fusion. So I'm going to put this one back and I'll demonstrate what's going to happen. So if I try and move this shape here, watch the internal shape as I do it. It's only got the outside profile. Ruby's a little bit tricky to select those inside profiles at the same time, but if you select the paths here, it's normally one after the other, so it's these two here. I can hold Shift down and I can grab that whole section, but you need to ensure that it doesn't move separately to change the sizing of our shape. So we can make some alignment changes, but be extra careful as you do it. One thing that I did when I tried to cut this Rubik's Cube to use this internal space and to minimize the cut lines was I bunched up 4 of the outside pieces. I selected the 4 together and then I placed it inside. So I know I didn't change any of the shapes, and the cutter, instead of cutting 4 lines, it only really needs to cut the 2 and then the 2 and 2, 2 and then straight through, and it will cut out each piece. So I'm going to keep going along and I'm going to do that. And in Fusion, if I can open the right component, you can see that this is cutting the outside dots for my Rubik's Cube, so these ones here, and we're just bunching them up together. So I've condensed my design quite nicely, and you can see I can go back to the Fit 2 and change that. I'm going to do 2mm this time, so it gives me a 2mm border. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change it to cut lines. So I'm going to select everything, or press Ctrl A, select red, and then I'm going to change the path size to 0.1mm. You might see nothing really happens other than the color changes. Last thing to check is to make sure that we have got the right size. So 0 to 125. That'll fit on my material, and I'm only using just over probably 230, 240 millimeters of material in length. So that's a really neat design, which is efficient with the material. If there's anything that's a different thickness, so these pieces here were all needing to be cut in 3mm, we could isolate them later onto 2 different sheets. For the sake of this video, let's have a look at changing this and pushing it to the laser cutter. The next step is to go Create Job. And you can see it's put it on a large sheet now. Here's our design. And because it's kind of gone to a very light color, it's because our material hasn't been allocated properly yet. So I'm going to go to the materials And I'm going to choose 8mm pine. That's what I want to cut this one out of. I know we were talking about 9mm before, but for most people, this is the material we're going to use for our first project. So you can see that's come up a bit brighter now. A couple of things to think of. So this one here, it's skip overlapping lines. So I'm going to turn that on. So to full, which is the bottom one. This one here, I want it selected, so it should look kind of grey, inner geometry first. We check the laser cutting speed, so it's at 0.4% at 100% power. And then engraving. Engraving, if you would like to put a design on your engraving, I'm going to go across to my design tab. And in the design tab, I'm going to drag and drop this 100-year logo across onto the page. So anything that's black and white will engrave. So the black will engrave deeper and the greys will be lighter. I'm going to scale this to fit into our project. I can edit this design by clicking the Edit Design tab and again edit. And I can change the different contrasts of the grayscale depending on what you want. So the crisper this image comes out, the better. This has actually came out worse, so I'm going to go cancel. I've got it placed where I want it on one of the outer cubes. We can check our engrave quality, so 100% and 90. This will engrave very fast and as powerful as it can. And our cut quality is appropriate for our material, the 8mm pine that we selected previously. So at this point, we can check it with the teacher, and when they're happy, you can press Q. Just before you do that, please name your work, so that you can change the name just here, and you can press save up in here. Once you've saved, check with your teacher, cue your work, and we'll be ready to cut.